Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Canadian Conservative Party, is running in a by-election in Battle River Crowfoot in rural Alberta, and it's turned into a very interesting race. I'm going to be talking to Deidre Mitchell-MacLean, who's the brains behind the Women in Ab Poly Substack, about it. So welcome to the interview, Deirdre.
Yeah, great to be here, Markham.
Well, this is fascinating because, it was assumed back when Pierre Poilievre lost his Ottawa seat in the election, that he would just waltz into this seat and would, I think it would return what, 82% for
Hmm.
the CPC candidate, uh, Damien, how do you pronounce his last name?
Correct.
Kurek. And so he stepped aside, and there's a long tradition of this happening in Canada, where if leaders are defeated, one caucus member will step aside, so the leader runs. And so he got 82%, and it was like, a blue pylon could win. But Bonnie Critchley, an independent candidate, has really changed the narrative, hasn't she?
Oh, she absolutely has. It's been amazing to watch because, like I said, I wasn't originally going to spend much time watching the by-election because it's rural Alberta. The leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, he should have been able to waltz in and just await his coronation. And Bonnie Critchley just stood up and said, "You know what? Not on my watch." It's fantastic.
Well, like, who is Bonnie Critchley? Because she's a very interesting character all on her own.
Oh, she certainly is. And the best way that I think I could describe her is that she is a typical rural Albertan. She's a person that I absolutely relate to because I was raised by people who talk like Bonnie Critchley, by people who really mean what they say, like Bonnie Critchley. Like I and the thing is, I'm not necessarily super conservative, but I definitely have conservative leanings. And so this puts me at odds with, many of the progressive parties. But like Bonnie Critchley is just a genuine, authentic person who's saying, I don't think it's okay that you're going to play politics with my riding, with my home.
Her personal background is very interesting. She's a retired veteran. I think she spent what, 22 years in the armed forces.
Yeah.
She's gay, and she's outwardly she's gay,
Hmm.
and she's very plain spoken. And she and people in the riding apparently are really warming up to her,
Are really which, sorry?
warming up to her.
Oh, I'm it's hard not to warm up to Bonnie Critchley because she's just so authentic. Like, you know, it's it's incredible when I watch some of her interviews because she kind of does this thing that I have found myself guilty of before, where it's just like you say the thing and then you just sit and wait because there's nothing more to add. I said the thing. That's all that needs to be said. And she does this, but that's how it's done in rural Alberta. It's like I said the thing. I don't need to explain it. I don't need to try and convince you. I have said it, and therefore it's that's what it is. And she just, she the only reason she put her name on the ballot is of because Damien Kurek stepped down, and apparently many people were happy with their vote. They were happy with Damien Kurek. And this is kind of something else that I wonder if it would have been better if he was a first term MP that no one knew. Because they do know him, Damien Kurek, they liked him, and they know that he's been active and visible in the riding. So this could also be something that is playing a bit of a part on that someone they liked stepped away for, as I wrote it the other day, the only Ottawa elite within that 52,000 square kilometer riding is Pierre Poilievre himself, which is just incredible to watch.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because he is the Ottawa elite. I think he's been in Parliament like 24 or 25 years, and he's only
Mhm.
46, 47 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
he is literally a career politician. Uh,
Yeah.
and Bonnie Critchley is the exact opposite. She's the anti-career career politician. Um, some of her criticisms are really right on the nose. She's called him out for cowboy cosplay
Yeah.
at the Calgary Stampede. I mean, he is from Calgary. He's not a rural Albertan. He's not even a small town or small city Albertan. He comes from Calgary, and he was part of the Calgary School at the University of Calgary. Part of that Stephen Harper trend. Jason Kenney kind of took him under his wing. That's who Pierre Poilievre is. And
Mhm.
that is not who Bonnie Critchley is.
No, and I mean, in any other circumstance, I would usually argue that the conservative will win in rural Alberta, unless you piss them off. Like, it's been rare that Albertans have done that rural Alberta has done something weird in a by-election. Like, once they elected a Liberal MP in Three Hills. Okay, that's weird. That doesn't happen. Um, Western Concept or Western Canadian Concept Party when they got their first seat. That was during a by-election out in Olds. So so rural Alberta is not against going or sorry is not afraid of going against the norm. And that's the other thing that kind of makes this exciting because Pierre Poilievre does not belong in Battle River Crowfoot. He he's not from there. And especially like you said, he should have gone to Calgary. He should have had someone step down in Calgary. Now, granted, there may have been more of a fight from a Liberal candidate in Calgary, but he doesn't belong and he sticks out like a sore thumb.
Well, I want to tell a story that kind of contradicts that in a way, because back in it was either 1925 or 1926, William Lyon Mackenzie King was the prime minister, and he lost in the election. And so the MP that stepped down then was from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, where I
Okay.
spent 10, 12 years. And there's a very famous national park there, Waskesiu Park. And what happened was King met with the local constituency association. They said, "Well, look, we're not happy. You're an Eastern carpetbagger, but if you're going to do this and we're going to support you, our price is a national park." And had it not been for that negotiation, there would be no Waskesiu Park, which is now quite famous and it's gorgeous and so on. So it's not unheard of that this happens in Canadian politics, and often the locals can choke down their bile and vote for the carpetbagger, but
They
he doesn't seem to have quite mastered that negotiation. He's not very light on his feet in this by-election.
Well, here's the other thing is that he has nothing to offer because he didn't win the election. He's not the Prime Minister of Canada. He is an opposition MP, no better than the person that he asked to step down. So he's already starting from behind in this riding. He can't offer a thing. And he has still spent his time talking about the liberals, talking about the liberal censorship ban. And I'm like, dude, in rural Alberta, that doesn't exist. There is no liberal censorship ban in rural Alberta. We don't care what these, what about that politics kind of thing. And so he's still talking about those things. He's talking about, opening up the economy, legalizing the economy or something like that. And again, this is not something that rural Alberta is struggling with, right? So, and when you're talking about oil and gas as well, oil and gas companies owe rural Alberta municipalities like $200 million. So again, you're talking about things in the exact opposite way that it's affected in, or that it affects people in the riding you're running for. So this like it's so nonsensical really what he's doing, and again that just makes Bonnie Critchley just rise that much higher and that much faster.
Now, you raised an issue in your Substack about this, which I would encourage viewers to read. Um, but this kind of it goes back to a comment that you made earlier about you have conservative leanings, and you've made comments in other interviews that you and I have done about the progressive conservatives. That was kind of your home until former Premier Jason Kenney blew it up in 2017, 2018 when he created the United Conservative Party, which is much further right. It's more of the populist libertarian kind of government that we see out of Donald Trump and Danielle
Mhm.
Smith. But Bonnie Critchley is not running as that kind of conservative. She said very clearly that she's kind of a centrist. She's going back to those progressive conservative roots. And I'm seeing that in other places. There's kind of a resurgence of that. Progressive conservatives who had been sidelined by this other, further right movement are now coming back. They're, individuals are running campaigns, people like Thomas Lukaszuk and Forever Canadian. What do you make of that?
I mean, it's, I think I can't say it's long overdue. It's actually not been that long, but the feverishness of where the united parties have gone. So the CPC federally, that's had a longer run, certainly, but Pierre Poilievre has really decided to take that. I mean, he's trying to pull in the People's Party of Canada vote and the convoy vote. Like these were opportunities that he took that he has really not grown out of, right? And so in Alberta, especially, we've also got this this party that went completely to the right. We have a premier who is supporting separatists in our province, and they're still not hitting great numbers. They might top out at 30%, but most Albertans really enjoy being Canadian as well. So a lot of the things that are happening right now are disturbing, not just to people who would call themselves centrist, but to people who would call themselves Canadian. And so, Bonnie Critchley coming out as centrist, and she did talk about this a bit on the breakdown with Nate Pike, where she was saying, like conservatives have some good policies and they've got some really stupid policies, and liberals have some good policies and they have some really stupid policies. And typically that's what a lot of people kind of think of when they're calling themselves centrists. It's like, I can't really get it, and I can't really get on board with either of them. I would prefer to just take the great policies from the liberals and the great policies from the conservatives, and let's do that instead. And I think without Mark Carney having really secured himself in that space, I don't think that we would be having a Prime Minister Mark Carney right now.
Now that's interesting because I would argue that Mark Carney has turned out to be a much more effective politician than I expected anyway. And he's kind of created some space for people like Bonnie Critchley to come out and talk and be that centrist. At least you could make that argument. I mean, he's only been prime minister. He only won the election, 4 months ago. So
Right.
it's maybe a little early to say this, but I can feel the ground shifting. At least that's the way it feels from where I sit. And I think that the convoy crowd, and for our non-Alberta listeners and non-Canadian viewers, that's kind of the equivalent of the mega culture that you would have in the United States, the Donald Trump, and which was ascendant starting in 2020 with the anti-vax, anti-mask, and then the Freedom Convoy in 2022, and on and on. That was in the ascendancy. Feels like it's in the decline. And we're starting to see now more people like Bonnie Critchley come up and stand up and say, no, 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 it's time to reintroduce these. So I think the leadership, the political class in Canada, there's a bit of a shift there. And I know it's early, but would you agree or disagree that there is a shift coming or underway?
Yeah, I think there is a shift, at least I think it is underway. And I think a lot of that, really was laid bare with Donald Trump, with the things that he was saying, the things that he was doing. He was really taking and this is also something that happened with the convoy and something I've seen, unfortunately, on social media since Nova Scotia said stay out of the woods. This idea that our charter protects our entertainment, that's not what it is there for. It doesn't protect, your right to go to McDonald's. There is no right to go to McDonald's. Like these don't exist. There is no right to go hiking or walk your dog in the woods. That's not what our charter protects. And by this perversion of our rights and freedoms over really silly things like taking your dog for a walk in the woods, it's you know that's what this mega culture is doing. They are perverting what our rights and freedoms are, and it's making people who have common sense, it's supposed to be conservatives, but it is making those people go, okay, wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I believe. I understand, the benefit to society for having some of these guardrails, these rules. So I think it's definitely underway.
I would, again, for our American viewers, Deirdre was referring to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which came in 1982 when we repatriated the Canadian Constitution from England. So there's a part of this, Deirdre, I find very fascinating, and that is this idea, and I'll direct folks to an episode a couple of years ago with Professor Trish Roberts Miller of the University of Texas that I did around libertarian authoritarianism, which is a real mouthful. She hated it as much as I did, the term. But here's the point, and it's basically what drives the MAGA culture and people like Danielle Smith and in Canada. And the easiest way to sum it up is Henry Ford's famous maxim where he said, you can have any car you want as long as it's black. You can have freedom, you can have all the freedom you want as long as I agree with it. And if I don't agree with it, I'll use the power of the state, the government, to curb your, or I'll organize, mob rallies around hospitals, or we'll threaten you with throw axes through your constituency, play glass window, that kind of stuff. And that I think is beginning to. I hope it's cresting. So anyway, maybe we should end the interview on that note. Deirdre, thank you very much for your insights as always.
Thank you, Markham.